Screws loose, they done stripped the bolts on them. Shoulda never sent them to pick up the work for them. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart Boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in the rush, they was all goners. Tech cursive on
All
his
right.
chest, was on John.
Greetings, Chudlings. Welcome to another episode of Chuddy's Corner, sponsored by Nick Prano Real Estate. Check out nickprano.com for all of your real estate needs, local, global, big, small, everything in between. Nick Prano Real Estate has got you covered. Had to give the full ad readout. The sponsor got a little bit big time in the immediate aftermath of the championship on the last pod. But shout out to Nick Prano. It is Thursday. It's June 20th. Got a few days of Banner 18 to sink in. Chud, you're looking better today than immediately following the pod. How are you feeling?
I don't know if I'll ever be feeling better than I was mentally and emotionally, but I guess physically probably doing a little bit better. We finally come to a little bit. We're on the iced coffee today instead, so doing great, feeling great. Nothing can really bring me down. It's a good time. Good time to be alive. Good time to be a Celtics fan, and just really haven't come down off that cloud yet. So. Loving it.
Yeah, I feel like anytime I feel like I might be coming down off it, there's just some new video that comes out of like someone celebrating, like O'Shea Brissett's video blog from the championship night came out today, so I haven't dug into that yet. I wanted to have a chance to fully enjoy it without rushing before the pod, but I'm going to jump into that, and I feel like that's going to be a whole other wave of like euphoria because you see all kind of the clips, and by now most of them are out, but that's going to be a very intimate view of the immediate aftermath of the game. So very excited for that. Shout out O'Shea Brissett just for all those like kind of vlogs throughout the season. It's been really cool. Super excited too for the actual documentary that they made. Like that was
unreal.
That was one of those tweets that sort of circled back around once they won. Where I remember that first came out, my initial reaction was like, Jesus Christ, like this is that's like a real gutsy, ballsy move there to go with that. But
came
now
out in like February, right? They announced it. I want to say it was like February. It originally came out, and I was kind of like, well, this is either going to be the greatest thing ever or the absolute worst. Like with no one.
Like would they have just scrapped? They would have had to just scrap the footage, right? Like if they didn't,
I don't know.
Imagine they put it out covering like us losing. That would be a disaster. It'd probably do pretty big numbers though, just based on the reaction I've seen to the Celtics winning. A lot of people would have loved to have seen the downfall. But again, the Celtics deny that. Banner 18 is being hung. Will be hung soon. Celtics get another championship. I still feel pretty good about me and you are doing the parade tomorrow. So we'll have tons of content out from the parade, assuming that we survive the heat and all and such like that. But what's kind of been what's sort of been your what's kind of sinking in as like your most sort of memorable or most exciting kind of let's say just from like the post championship part, not necessarily the season.
It's obviously impossible to just like pinpoint one moment, but I think just the whole feeling and the way everything's changed that we've been building up to for really almost 10, 11 years since Brad first took over as coach, since we first traded away Pierce and Garnett and really embarked on this rebuilding journey and everything we've been to. And the fact that we finally have done it and that we've done it with Tatum and Brown, these guys that have been there since the start. I mean, it's so rare in sports, and it's funny that what you alluded to, so many people hate on the Celtics, I think just because they're the Celtics, but it's like, this is what everyone yearns for, to build organically, to grow through the draft, to grow with your young players, to watch them develop, and especially in the modern age of sports where it's like, people have one bad game and they're like, break them up, or like they can't win together, or blow this team up, this and that, to actually have gone through this entire ride that, again, it's hopefully just getting started, but feels like it's been a never-ending journey, and to see the growth of especially those two, and to see them get there, I mean, it was just impossible to hold back the emotions. And again, I think in this day and age of sports, it's rare to be able to be on that journey from start to finish, and to watch two guys grow into young men and elite basketball players, and to be reaching their prime, and to have done it all in Boston with this team, and to be there at the end, hugging each other, holding those trophies. They're going to get those rings. They're going to raise that banner. The parade's going to be amazing, and just so many emotions. And again, like, sports have become so much rooting for laundry, and there's so much talk about transactions and contracts and this and that. And again, to have just nailed 2 draft picks in a row and get there with those two guys leading the way every step of the way. It just it feels incredible.
That's exactly it. Like, I don't, that's kind of, I honestly, maybe I was naive to think that them winning would kind of like silence a lot of the like crazy comments and commentary. We're going to get into a lot of the stuff that's still been going out. But to your point where it's like, what this team was is pretty much what everyone would want like your team to be. It was the ultimate like team ball. There was no, like, people were talking about like ego. I don't sense any ego. There's nothing like that. Everybody on the team had to make a sacrifice at some point.
Yeah.
I want to give a credit to Kevin Clark, was on Around the Horn, and he was basically saying like, if you don't appreciate what the Celtics just did, like, you just hate the Celtics more than you like basketball, which I think is like for a lot of people that's kind of like where we're at, because it's like, what more can you ask for out of a team? Like, the guys get drafted, come up with it, kind of ingrain themselves in the city, buy into the whole entire culture thing, and just make all these different sacrifices, not just the Jays, but Drew Holiday, the sacrifice that he makes, Al Horford, just to be pushing himself this much at this age and still just being like just so elite too. Like, we mentioned a little bit on the immediate podcast after Game 5, but we didn't win it for Al. Al went out and won it for himself, with the team. So it's just, overall, it's just like I don't really know. Like, if I just didn't know anything about basketball and had no rooting interest, and I just sort of watched this, I'd be like, isn't that like exactly what you would want from your sports team? Like, everyone just doing everything for the person next to them. It was just, it's just amazing. And it's like, when you get to look at it too, like all season long, there was like all these stats that were like, oh, like, every team that's had this like point differential has gone on to win the title and all. And like, I remember seeing those stats like all year, just being like, these are so cool, but it's not going to mean anything. And then, so now, like, now that it's over and it's done with and the title's won, it's like you really get to look back and just see just how like insanely dominant this season was. Like, people think that there wasn't a lot of competition. I just think it's like that can go two different ways. I mean, I don't think that it was necessarily like a down year for the league. I know there's injuries. We know there are injuries too. We had, we were missing Porzingis for, more than half the playoffs. He played like 57% of games this season. So it's like, I get the injury parts, but I do just feel like, we finished so far ahead of everybody, and then to go ahead and win the finals too in 5 games, it's just dominance. It's the second team since the current 16 win format to only lose like 3 or fewer games to get to the finals or get to win the finals. So just the ultimate, just like team effort coming up in spades. So I don't really know the reaction I get it from certain fan bases, but the reaction to some people who seemingly have no horse in the race. It's just quite bizarre. You got to just enjoy what just happened.
Yeah, I think it's like everyone just said, it's just the hatred for Boston and the Celtics in general overrides so much else. If the same exact team and story and everything had played out with a team like, the Hornets or someone who doesn't have that type of hate across the board, I think way more people would be appreciating this for what it is, and all the stuff you just mentioned. And again, it always takes time for things to sink in, but now we can definitely start to appreciate some of those stats, appreciate some of that dominance, and appreciate everything they did. And I mean, you could say this and that about a good path, but there's injuries every year. The league definitely I would say the league right now is more talented than it's ever been. There's more parity across the board because there's so many good players. I mean, even the bad teams have good players. And again, the CBA has kind of leveled the playing. All they've done is to create parity and to kind of make things even, and the Celtics just said, forget that. And, you can blame injuries. They made it maybe a little luck along the way in the playoff path, but that doesn't explain winning the conference by 15 games and basically, not even having to take the rest of the regular season seriously. When, think of that last month of the season, like when we were still mostly winning, but did we ever play like our top whatever guys together? Like, it was different guys resting every single night. We were just basically experimenting, trying different things. That was a month of the season. We clinched, ridiculously early, so just absolutely dominated the regular season and then absolutely dominated the playoffs. Not a single series even going to 6 games is just nuts. And again, basically did that whole playoff run without Porzingis, who was one of the biggest factors for the team in the regular season. And, something everyone is just funny, like all the pundits kept saying like, yeah, well, they're going to need him eventually. They're going to need him. And it's like, not really. I mean, he helped against Dallas. Sure, he was good. And especially those first 2 games, like it was nice having him. But I think it's pretty clear that even without him, the Celtics were still the best team. And now, again, all of those stats from the entire season, now we get to look back and fully appreciate them and look back. And you know what? People can say whatever they want. They can argue about, they don't pass the eye test or this and that, but the numbers are the numbers. And 20 years from now, they'll be up
Eye
there
test.
on all those leaderboards with all those other great teams. And at that point, the only argument will be where do they stack up amongst the best championships and championship teams ever created. And people can have a hard time coming to terms with that, but fuck them. The numbers are the numbers. The stats are the stats. Banners hang forever. None of that shit matters. And the other thing too is I think people, especially recently, and part of it I think is like the almost Jordan and now somewhat LeBron culture of the NBA and the discourse around it, where it's like everyone wants things to fit perfectly into this like cookie cutter ideal of what a championship should be, what a best player should be, what a team should look like. And we've gotten so obsessed with this model of like this dominant alpha player who's the best and he's better than everyone else. And we've even gotten obsessed with this idea of like building up a super team that we saw with, the Heat, kind of the Warriors, even the first iteration of the Celtics. But it's like this version of the Celtics has taken what's given to them in terms of the way the rules of the league have changed. And they've built, whether you want to call them a super team or not, like, again, people can't come to terms with the fact that they don't have like a clear guy who's in the mix for best player alive. So it's like, well, how can they not have that but be so good? But it's like almost like the new version of a super team now isn't necessarily having like the three best stars or this or that. It's not like a big three that the Celtics have had. What it is really is like no players, there's just no letdown. There's no weakness. Even like the worst player who plays is really good. And it's almost a super team in that sense where it's like even our role players, everyone's elite at their role. We were able to play this way that, so much credit to Missoula. But again, it wouldn't have been possible without this personnel to play five, to not have a single guy who can get targeted on defense. I mean, everyone is like great to elite for their position defensively. They're all extremely versatile. And on offense, pretty much everyone is a threat. They can all shoot threes. They can all handle the ball. They can all pressure the defense. And to me, it's a super team in that sense, where it's like even the worst guy we played at his best could like arguably be an all-star on another team. And I mean, you already talked about the sacrifice, but again, it's like everyone says this is what they want superstar players to do, to change their game in a way that makes the team better and fits winning. And now they do it, and people don't want to appreciate the numbers, but it's like, this is a modern day supers team. They have 6 players who are really, really friggin' good and would be one of the best players on any other team. And they're all fitting perfectly into their roles, playing the game the right way. And you saw an absolute dominant, impenetrable defense. I mean, say what you want about them, but I haven't seen another team in the league all year that can just live with guarding Luka and Kyrie one-on-one and saying, you want to run pick and rolls and make us switch? Fine, we'll live with that. And again, you're never going to shut those guys down, but Luka, what was his best game? 32 points? Like even at his best, there was never a game where you're like, oh my God, he's just completely breaking our defense. We basically just stuck with single coverage and switching for the most part. And it worked because we have such good personnel, such good defenders. And then we were able to turn the tables on the other end and punish them on offense. There's nowhere to hide against this team. And the Celtics almost like were inevitable. They're almost like the Avenger gauntlet thing with all like the Infinity Stones and licking up. And it's like, yeah, not every player is like one of the best players in the league, but you're never going to build a team that way. And we've seen teams try to do that and it doesn't work because everyone wants to be in that star role, where this Celtics team, everyone was happy to do whatever was needed on any given night. And that's what made them a super team, if you want to call them that or whatever. To me, was really just the consistency and the lack of any shred of a weakness.
Yeah, and I think one of the funniest kind of things that come out of this is like, so they win, they're the champions, and everyone is. It kind of goes back to what you're saying, where everyone's trying to find this like mold of what we're used to seeing, and it's like everyone's like, whoa, well, like was Tatum even the best player on the team? Is Tatum? It's like I feel like I used to, and this is like up until like 2 weeks ago, get like really caught up in this like making sure, but it's like at the end of the day, like making sure that Tatum, is he have to defend that he's in this top 5, and you know what? I think like if on a different team, you might see more of that. It might be a more clear conversation, but I just feel like the way teams defend him says all that you need to know. I know, like, you can have, like, the shows can say whatever they want. You can point to whatever numbers. So, he had, like, the worst shooting percentage in, like, a finals, like, ever. Like, who gives a shit about that stuff, honestly? It's, like, it's so weird the way, like when like Tatum's whole thing was like, what are they going to say now? And it's like, you'd honestly be shocked with the things they're coming up with now, Tatum. Like we're just as baffled as you. I thought the same thing. I thought that there would be like kind of this like reckoning where it's like, all right, well, damn, this team is like sick. But instead it's like, yeah, they won, but like they, what about this like one thing that this player did and like all that other kind of shit. And it's just, it is crazy. It's shocking to me the fact that like, I think I saw Chris Broussard, moron of the highest caliber. basically just say that like Tatum still has a lot to prove. He has to prove that he can be the best player and win a championship on that team. Like he has to be the best player on it. So it's like, so now it's like, it's not even like winning is not even good enough. Now he has to be the best player to impress this fucking idiot. So I agree with you. I think it's like people maybe just aren't used to seeing like that this might, I mean, to me, I feel like the league is going to sort of move, right. The league is going to kind of move, I think, towards this direction of getting
the smart teams.
A team where you can have like positionless basketball that, Brad has been kind of building up to for a long time. And we basically saw the fruition of it. It was just like any person can be anywhere on the floor, covering any person or going against any person, and there's just not really much of a concern one way or the other. So
absolutely,
it's just super impressive. Just the team from top to bottom. It's crazy that people can't just like be like, well, that was fucking sick. It's like they're always and again, I think it's like always the loudest people that you hear. It might not be a representative of like the true numbers, but
yes,
I'm surprised that there's a lot of people like, to me, that shit is like Lakers, Heat, 76ers, like that's like their fan propaganda, and people are falling for it, and it's fucking crazy. I got a couple other things about that particularly we could save all that for later, but I think overall the team, it's fucking great. One of the great teams of all time. Like just the numbers bear it out.
Well, and the nonsensical discourse, I think, just furthers that, where it just shows all these people who we've known are idiots all along. They don't know how to discuss basketball. They only know how to talk in takes and narratives, and the Celtics have just squashed them all so matter-of-factly and dominantly that it's like when they just crush everyone, it's like, well, they have to reach to make up these angles because they don't know how to just discuss an all-time great basketball team performing at an all-time great level and just largely steamrolling their way to a championship. They're like, well, this isn't going to play on our hot take shows, so we have to find some other angle.
Like if we lived in like a fantasy world where like an alternate universe, let's say, where sports shows are dominated by just like talking about the game and like adjustments and X's and O's and stuff like that. And I'm not a wizard in that sense at all. Like I would stand to still learn more from that. But it's just like overall, if that was what the conversations were, people would be like obsessed with the Celtics team. But it's because we're stuck in this like hot take land where it's just like it's like, oh well, like, is he truly, like I said, I mean, to say he still has to prove he can be the best player on a winning team. Who has ever been held to that standard? Like, who cares about that? So if he wins like 4 championships with the Celtics and like, it isn't a clear cut like that, and like Jaylen Brown doesn't play poorly in those series, like Tatum is not like legit. Like it's just there's nothing left, and
they have nothing to talk about.
I was expecting like a reckoning of like, oh shit, but it's crazy. It's like I said, you'd be surprised what they're gonna say now. It's fucking it's insane.
Right. Well, I think the good news is if you dig a little below the surface and avoid some of the hot take shows, like there has been some great discourse and a lot of people who do know how to discuss the game. I've listened to some great podcasts, watched some great shows, seen some stuff, Twitter, YouTube here, whatever. You're not going to see it on the ESPN and Fox sports shows that like lead the coverage, annoyingly enough. But I think for the most part, like you said, it's really the vocal majority. But I think most people who actually respect the game of basketball, know what they're talking about, and whose opinions and stuff I respect are giving the Celtics their flowers, which has been great to hear. And again, it's like you're just looking for a reason to hate if you can't do that, because it's like there's no reason not to. And then the other thing is like, not that it matters again, but if you watch this team at all and watch the playoff run and you don't think that Jason Tatum is the best player and led that team to a finals, like people act like he just played awful and was like, basically he shot poorly. And now it's like, well, if he doesn't shoot poorly, we'd probably go 16-0 in the playoffs and win every game by 20 points. It's like all he didn't do was shoot well. But I mean, the stuff he does, again, you're looking at these talking heads who are probably half watching the game, look at a box score and have to, then they're, the producer's like, all right, what's the take? Like, what's the angle? What are we going with? Like, that's how they're analyzing these games. Watch the game. And is the stuff that Tatum is doing super sexy? Drawing a second defender every play, starting the play, getting the ball in motion, making the right pass to start the ball movement that leads to a wide open three, being a willing screener on offense, how many guys who play like that on the wing are willing to commit to guarding the other team's center for an entire series, taking away arguably the best element of the Mavericks offense, their pick and roll game, where if you go back and watch how they were beating other teams, pick and rolls, Gafford and Lively were living at the rim, dunking people to oblivion on alley-oops. Those are basically gone because our superstar player was willing to be like, fuck it, I will get in the mud and battle with centers for this series, not say a word about it. How many times have we heard about Anthony Davis, who basically is a center and is like, I don't want to guard centers. It's so much wear and tear on my body. I want to guard power forwards. We need a real center. Shit like that. Where it's like, Tatum didn't hear one peep. And for at least, all of the last 2 series, a little bit before then, he just went out there and guarded straight up centers, where he's essentially a small forward. I mean, at this point, I think he's a power forward. But either way, again, that's the kind of thing that's not sexy. You're not going to hear guys on First Take talking about how Tatum was happily guarded Lively and Gafford and basically took them out of the series.
Does he need to guard more small forwards?
Right. That's his willingness to do that, and not only willingness to do it, but to do it at such a high level and to work his ass off to make sure that they're not beating us on switches or anything like that, is a huge part of the reason we were able to hold that team under 100 points 4 times in 5 games. An offense that before that, everyone was like, how can anyone stop them? Well, it's like when your best player is willing, again, to do what's best for the team and something that's not going to show up on the box score.
And do it really well, too.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Right. Not just doing it at a super high leble that allowed the Celtics defense by the end. People
like
just
like create a
there's no answers.
Putting him there.
Not at all. It created, if anything, a strength and took away arguably their biggest strength. They had no answers for it. And again, they had the one game 4, which, whatever. We were ready to celebrate. They had pride and fought off elimination. But for the most part, that was it. We saw 5 games. That was basically an outlier. And for the other 4 games, Celtics defense was absolutely dominant. Every facet. And a huge part of that, again, is our superstar wing player just being like, fuck it. I'm guarding the centers this series, and that's it. And they did it, and the Mavs could not break that adjustment at all. So again, something you don't hear him in any of the big talk shows giving him credit for that stuff, for drawing double teams, for shifting the defense on that end, and for being willing to adapt on the defensive end and just being really, really, really impactful on both ends.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if we lived in like an alternate reality where like people just appreciated it, like Tatum would be like one of like the most beloved players. Like the fact that like afterwards, like he wins, he's an NBA champion. He doesn't win Finals MVP. Doesn't really seem to have bothered him. Doesn't really seem to have bothered anyone. But the new discourse for Tatum now, did you see, is like that he was like basically like copying everyone's like that is his celebration wasn't like authentic enough for people. People were calling it like corny and stuff. But so I do want to address a little bit of that. I know that most of these people, it's either Sixers fans, Lakers fans, or like Heat fans, or it's a bunch of useful idiots within the area here, which blows my mind that there's people that are fans of Boston teams that are falling for this, but there are. And so if any of them are listening, you're an idiot. You're, but my kind of point is,
explain that. Right? What is even the argument there? Like, explain.
I'm going to go through the things that they're complaining about. So the first one is they think that his immediate post-game thing was he was trying to copy Garnett. Now, if you recall, Garnett yelled, "Anything is possible." Tatum yelled, "We did it." Now, the similarities, which I'll grant anyone, is that they're both Celtics players who just won a championship. So there is that one similarity. Outside of that, I don't really understand, like, screaming into the air during your press conference doesn't really seem like it's like a uniquely KG thing after people win. As a fan of Boston sports, that's the one that we remember most. But to me, that one doesn't hold up to the sniff test at all. I don't like, because Garnett yelled into the air and then Tatum yelled into the air with his hands up. It's like he must have been trying to copy Garnett. He said a completely different phrase. So that one's wrong. You sound like an idiot.
That's ridiculous.
2, the Kobe pose. Number 2, people said that he was trying to copy the Kobe pose.
When?
Those people, this one is, any person that said send the pictures, they don't have them. The Kobe pose, he was sitting down. The Tatum pose, everyone was sitting, he was standing up. So you're wrong. You sound like an idiot.
So you can't take a picture with the trophy?
Right, exactly.
No one knows that.
Yeah,
no one
exactly.
Does that.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. He's hugging the trophy. Oh my gosh! Like that's what Michael Jordan did when he won it. Like that's what literally every person does when they win the trophies. Like This is just like, again, it's this Tatum derangement syndrome I've been talking about. These people are just lunatics. They just there's nothing that he could do.
I mean,
he could cure
bad.
cancer, and they would say that like he's an asshole for doing that, like, or whatever. But so that's the second one. The third one, where he says like what they gonna say now. I guess that was something that Angel Reese said, and then someone found a clip of Steph Curry saying it too.
I'm sure he's copying Angel Reese.
Right. It's just kind of like one, like it just seems to me like to be a very kind of standard thing that you say when you finally beat someone. Like I feel like when I won my Dart League championship, I think I might have even been saying what they're gonna say now, and that was before Angel Reese, so maybe he's copying me. I don't know, but either way,
wow.
Talk about a fucking crazy thing to be reaching about. And then I thought there was a fourth one. The fourth one is evading me right now. But either of those three, though, you just sound like completely fucking ridiculous.
Those are all brutal.
And it is. It's so brutal. Like like people are like honestly like losing their minds over it. No one can just say like, "Hey, congrats!" Like to say it's like corny. It's like, how is winning the championship corny? Like I don't understand. I don't understand that. Like, I think it's corny to be like splicing together images of like him that aren't even like doing the same thing and being like, look. It's like I honestly feel like people are taking crazy pills. Like I'm like, they're saying one thing and showing a completely different thing. Like,
yeah,
it's like quite. It would be like if I was like a video. Like if I'm like, hey, look at this like blue flag behind me. It's a blue flag. It's like no, it's everyone can clearly see it's a green flag. Like no matter how much I say it, but people are falling for it. So I had to go down the list because I just was dealing with way too much fucking. Again, this is from people who are from the area that feel.
So that part I don't get, and I haven't seen. I understand the other stuff you said, like for the Sixers,
like if you
Lakers fans. This is all they've had. Nothing. That's all they've had to cling to is that the Celtics hadn't won. It was the one thing they could say and be like, well, but they haven't won a championship. Now they have. There's literally nothing to say. So grasping at straws. I mean, it's. I get it. It's a dark day for them. They've lost.
Literally, their celebration was like,
the one thing giving them life, they now don't have anymore. So I completely get it. And again, this is the beauty. I'm soaking in. Like I love this. It fuels me the hatred from others, and now that they're just seething even more because now, as Tatum so wonderfully stated, what are you going to say now? There is nothing they can say. They can say all this stuff, and we get to just sit here and laugh and say, okay, sounds great. How's good luck winning your own championship. We'll talk soon, all that stuff, like whatever. It really doesn't matter, whatever narratives they want to reach for and make up now, because again, the banners fly forever. Tatum could retire tomorrow, and that number 0 will be hanging in the rafters.
I'm literally getting texts right now, people complaining about his tweets, that his tweets are upsetting them. No joke.
I think you need to cut some people out of your life.
In real time.
I think you need to find some good friends or something.
I you just crying emoji them to death. Like it's just crazy to me. Just absolute freakazoids.
That's sad. It is sad. It's a crazy level of hatred, delusion, whatever you want to call it. I don't understand what's again, everything that everyone says they want in a superstar. Get drafted, work harder on both ends of your game every year, improve, help your team win. Don't get in trouble off the court, be a good family man, and then sacrifice to achieve the ultimate goal. Like, he's checked every box that you would want a superstar to check, every part of the journey. And like you said, some people will just generational hatred going on in our world at the moment, and it's being directed at the people who are the best and most successful. So again, I guess that's that's the price to pay. You want to be a superstar, you want to be the face of the league, you want to be one of the best players in the world, you're going to have haters. So let the haters be loud. And a little bit of breaking news, not to completely derail the conversation,
what do we
but
got?
It's official. JJ Redick, 4-year contract to become the next coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. You gotta love it. So shouts out to our, can we call JJ a contemporary, fellow NBA podcaster? We're basically
we'll
same level. So I mean, that gives us hope. I can't rule out that one of us could be hired now if this goes well. I guess we kind of have to root for JJ, right? Because then they could start to look at some other NBA podcasts for coaching hires. So. Wow.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I feel like we've been laughing at the story for so long, and now it's actually happening. Is pretty wild. Stuff.
That's good. I think that's going to end horribly. I don't really see that working out too well. No. But who knows? We'll see. That's
awesome stuff.
Good breaking news. Good mid-podcast breaking news.
That is hilarious. Boom. JJ. Oh, too good.
Yeah. So I think let's pivot a little bit to some of the other guys. So Jaylen gets his finals MVP. Has there ever been anyone who's just kind of gone and answered the bell more, gets so much shit for the left-hand stuff at the end of the season last season, gets takes all kinds of flack, gets the contract. People complain about the contract. What are they doing? Oh my gosh, they should have done this. They should have done that. Mm-hmm. Goes out, has just an unreal season. Should have been on an All NBA team.
Yeah.
Didn't get All NBA. Didn't get All Defense. but goes out and wins the MVP for the Eastern Conference Finals, the finals, and just wins an NBA championship. That is like just taking your nuts out, throwing them on the table for everyone to see. So shout out to Jaylen Brown. I think, the gap, between the two, and this isn't like a thing like who's who, has closed, and that, Celtics fans, is nothing but good news. Like, that is, like, the way he's able to play. I loved what he was saying in the game, too, where he's like, if Luka gives the ball up, I'm not letting him get it back. Like, I'm just going to keep taking him. I think that was just, like, a great strategy and just a great thing, again, for a player, of that caliber to just be willing to do that and still be able to provide along the offensive end, too. I don't know what next year's going to look like for him, because it's like every season he's improved some like big part of his game. And so there's fewer things to improve now. So if everything just gets a little bit better, than it is now, look out. He's going to be a super special player. But shout out to Jaylen Brown. Just incredible. Well, but even more so than he is now. But
no, I mean, as awesome as the Tatum ride has been, it's like as soon as Tatum got drafted, we all kind of knew, okay, this guy is special. He's got all this potential. The Jaylen Brown one is almost even crazier because he got drafted. People were upset about it. They're like, what are we doing? How are we taking this guy over the likes of, Dragan Bender and Chris Dunn? Like, woe is me. I can't believe this. People wanted Josh Jackson and Marquise Chris, and we can go up and down the list. But he came up. We got this kid who was basically just an athlete out of Cal. Couldn't really shoot, couldn't really dribble, just super athletic. Said, okay, we'll see. The leaps he's made from at the time where, again, you were wondering if he could shoot or dribble to now being amazing at both, able to create himself off the dribble, create his own shots, become elite at it. And the things he did, especially, all season, like you said, but especially in those finals where what we kind of mentioned, the stuff that Tatum did was as impactful as it gets, but isn't as clear and obvious to like your casual observer. Whereas I think the reason Jaylen ultimately got the NBA, the finals MVP, was because the stuff he did was so in your face, where he is stepping up and guarding their best player and taking Luka basically the entire series one-on-one, for hitting kind of the biggest shots, making what seemed like the clutchest baskets, this and that and the other. So it was like, I feel like his stuff was just kind of louder. And again, I would have been happy with anyone on the roster winning finals MVP. I think it's super cool for Jaylen, just that the journey he's been on, it feels like he's been, Tatum, the discourse with Tatum is almost more always around like, is he the best guy or not? Whereas with Jaylen, there's genuinely people who are like, we should trade him for, people wanted to trade him for like, this is like the last offseason. People wanted to trade him for like Scoot Henderson. Be like, start the rebuild over. Like, trade him. Like, that was an actual like talking point. Like, we could get Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson. Those are the same people now that are not giving they're still finding new things. So right now it's Tatum sucks and Jaylen's amazing. But it's like, to truly see him reach these levels on both ends, where his game is so good, he's so polished, and still just entering his prime. That one, I mean, to me, I was emotional about all of it, but the Jays, Al, and I think Jaylen, he's been there the longest at this point, his whole career, and the amount of doubt he's gotten and the amount of talk there's been about trading him, even from before the contract, this, that, and the other, and he just keeps shutting everyone up, getting better and better. And now that's been, I think, the one positive thing about the nonsense discourse, whereas all the anti-Tatum rhetoric is absolutely brutal, but the pro Jaylen rhetoric is kind of fun to see. Like, I saw some new, I think it was like Hoops Hyper Bleacher Report released their new like top players ranking, and they had Brown at number 8, like the 8th best player in the league.
Yeah,
so
Tatum
to see him popping up on lists
right?
like that, we'll ignore that part. But the Brown part, just seeing him get credit where people like that are mentioning him, is like, now he's a top 10 player in the entire league.
I mean, people were flipping out at me and you last year for saying he was top 25 last season.
Right.
Like, we were saying that game of last season. People
and now
were
like, how can you argue against it? That's the thing everyone wants to say, where it's like, he's got his own, and it's like I said, all the people who worship someone like Jimmy Butler, who ignores the regular season and then shows up and has a few clutch playoff games, and everyone acts like he's the big bad bully. It's like, Jaylen just sacrificed all year long, didn't get recognized with any of the regular season awards, and then was the finals MVP on a juggernaut team. So it's like, this is
right. Could easily have like an attitude about all that shit too.
There's not one more question for him to answer. He's taken on that leadership persona. He's become a true dog. Like, again, everything that if you just take the green jersey off and take your blinders of hatred off and act like, what would you want? What's like your ideal outcome for an NBA player and their growth, development, character arc, if you will? And it's like, you couldn't find a better one than what happened with Jaylen Brown. And as a fan of his, dating back to day one, which, you know, I know they're out there, but there's been a lot of, he seems like he's gotten doubt and hate more than anyone along the way. I just can't think of like a better guy to root for. I couldn't be happier that he's been on our team and that we've got him and be in his corner this whole time. And just that makes it feel so good to see him get to the mountaintop, to experience that joy, to watch it, the emotion pouring out of him. You know, I think we all feel that, all of us who've been there from day one supporting him and getting to see it paid off, because he's proven every doubter emphatically wrong, and then some. And at this point, he's just, you know, pouring dirt on the graves, it almost seems like, with some of the stuff he's doing. It's incredible, and we are so lucky. And like, people who ask me why I devote so much of my time, mental well-being and health, all of this stuff, like, this is why you do it. This is the payoff, to feel that reward and to feel like, you know, we have been there and our faith and supporting and defending for so long is being paid back and then some. And it just makes it feel like, you know, we were right to believe all along and we're being rewarded for it. And that's why it feels so damn good. This, you know, as good as the 08 title felt,
exactly.
It felt
Don't let anyone,
it felt a little, you know, it was great for 08. Great than that, it was like kind of, we went out, it was like we were mercenaries. Like, we love Garnett, we love Ray Allen, but those guys were bought. And it's like, there's something different about going through the wars with these guys and them being the ones to get us there. Like, it would, if we had traded Jaylen and picks for KD and came in and won this title in the same fashion, it would have felt good, but I just don't know if it would have felt as good. Like, it's something about being like,
there's definitely something to the home cooking side of it. Cause I don't think this, I know this isn't what you were saying, but it's like, you're right. Like, the 08, it felt great just because, like, that team also was just dominant. And it was like, you know, with just to see Pierce kind of get over the hump and stuff like that. So you're right. That team was kind of like, those guys came in and it was like, we brought you guys in to win, and win we're going to do, and win they did first season right in. And it was awesome. It was crazy. It was sweet. That was, you know, great in its own entire way. But to this point, it makes like all like this championship, I mean, makes all the like things that happened before that were so frustrating and so crushing. They make it all kind of like, you know, feel like it's like that was all just part of the story, and you get to finish the story with like the championship. It is just such a great feeling to get to finish it with a game too where both the Jays played really well and kind of lifted the team over the hump. You know, it just, it definitely has a different feel to it being this kind of like home cooked one. And, you know, you get to go back and look at like some of the lineups we were putting out in like 2013, 2014. I mean, even as early as like 2019 and stuff like that. Like, just some of the lineups would just be, you know, it's almost like, you know, we still had so much faith then. We'd be like, all right, this is something though. We're building towards something here. And then, you know, to get it. And of course, you know, we did have Drew and we had KP come in too. So there's like a little bit of that hired mercenary kind of thing to it a little bit. But that's kind of completing this core. And you can even throw Horford into that group too, as like seeing those guys kind of get up. Right, exactly. Horford kind of coming in as like, along with the Jays. Like I said, it's almost like that Ninja Turtles meme where it's like the young Ninja Turtles with Splinter and then them guiding Splinter out at the end. This one it feels really good, and it feels too like, you know, it's like it feels like this is the start of something more. Like I don't think that, you know, with the 08 team, I know we had like a 3 or 4 year window, but this it's a lot harder to see the sunset on this kind of window that we have right now with this group, because everyone is still locked up. Everyone's still locked into their contracts. I know that the Tatum extension is pretty much a done deal, obviously. The Derek White one, it keeps sounding more and more like it is, you know, until there's ink to paper. It's hard to imagine not anything else, but this one definitely does sort of feel a little bit special. I did want to talk a little bit about Al. So finally gets his name off that list with John Stockton and Karl Malone, which is just a great list to get yourself off of. I didn't know too. Is he like the first Dominican-born player to win a championship? I saw something. I think we have the first Dominican, first Latvian, and first Portuguese.
Yeah, that's true. So
so
great.
Team of international esteem. But Horford. There was a video. I don't know if you saw the videos today. He was at a Raising Cane's in Boston. Like, it's supposed to be out there like serving chicken, and it basically just like shut the whole friggin' thing down. Like, it was so packed there. He couldn't have been there for more than like 45 minutes probably before they're just like, all right, this is just untenable here. But he was signing a lot of autographs, taking a lot of pictures of people, like just like a god in this city. So it feels great for Horford to get over that hump. It sounds, I've heard some early reports that he has no intention of retiring. I know that was a little bit concern for some people. So
he's coming back.
So I don't know, how did it feel? I mean, Horford's just one of those guys where it felt like getting to see him win too.
Oh,
just makes this mean a lot more too, along with the other.
100%. 100%. I mean, Al being at that age and around that long, you mentioned the stat that everyone points to, but I mean, what a gamer, what a professional, what an easy guy to root for, just what like a good guy to have there. And I mean, you never hear anyone say a bad word about him. It really did. I mean, I know he's not like a career Celtic, but it feels like he is. And I mean, that for me, like watching the game, I was sitting there screaming at the TV, full on like coach's hat demeanor, not letting myself get excited for 1 second. And that when they finally looked up and Al's coming out of the game, and he's hugging Joe, and that was when I first like stopped yelling about getting stops and was just like, oh my God, it's really happening. Started to get emotional. And I mean, it's just, I can't even imagine for him how incredible this is for him to reach these heights and going from, I mean, a guy who played on one of the most dominant college basketball teams of all time, winning back-to-back natties at Florida. All he knows is winning, coming into the league, even, early in his career, pushing that '08 Celtics team to 7 games, talking shit to, who was he talking shit to in that? Was it Pierce or Allen? He was somebody, but he was almost like a pseudo villain at times. Go through all the way, come in here, getting so close.
That's all memory holes for me. Anything of him in a Hawks uniform,
and it's crazy, but it's just crazy to think that's how long his journey has been. And then even leaving the Celtics, basically just because he thought there was a chance Kyrie might come back, he was like, "Oh, fuck this, I'm out of here." The fact that he went and played in Philly and OKC, and now that feels surreal. Like that happened. Oh my God. But then to come back and just still be so rock solid. And like we touched on earlier, it wasn't like he was just some ring chaser. It wasn't like the Blake Griffin last year along for the ride. Like Al, I mean, he started every playoff game. He started the whole playoffs, and he was absolutely one of our most key players, and all that stuff we talked about how the Celtics just create advantages and prey on other teams' weaknesses. Al is a huge part of that. His ability to switch and defend at his age, and for us to be able to live with him matching up with basically whoever. You go through the list, we lived with it. And again, there's times where guys are going to make Al dance and hit shots over him, and he doesn't care. He comes back and holds his own, and he had an awesome final series defending both Luka and Kyrie in space, which is something that I'm sure going into the series, all the idiots who picked the Mavericks thought, oh, good luck when Al gets switched on to those guys one-on-one. Well, turns out,
to that point,
trouble for them.
Mavs shot 26 of 72. That's 36% from the field when they were defended by Horford. Luka shot 32%. Kyrie shot 35% when covered by Al. So
he's the fucking man.
I was waiting for that to come up. I wanted to get that stat in there.
Yeah,
again, it's like people, and earlier in the playoffs, people were saying that, he's getting targeted. They got to wonder about Al, blah, blah, blah. So he kicked it up a notch for sure.
And we even said at times, there are times where it's going to look bad, but that's the nature of it. And even as you said, when he was quote unquote getting cooked, go watch the tape, and it's like, all right, Donovan Mitchell or Jarius Garland are just drilling ridiculous step back threes. It's like, it doesn't matter who the defender is. And credit to Joe and the Celtics for believing in the system, believing in Al, and he came through with some of his best play, and not only held his own, but they couldn't score on him like straight up for the whole series. He was amazing, saved his best for last, and oh God, I just love him so much. It's crazy to me that he's not like, I feel like he's generally universally loved, but I mean, I do listen to a lot of Sixers stuff, and it's just funny to me how much they hate him. Al, which is crazy. Like, I get it, but it's just so funny. Like, Al, he's Al. Come on, how can you hate this guy? Like, he's such a good guy, but they don't feel that way.
Yeah, they don't like him. No, I saw some article they came out, and but that's another funny thing too with the Sixers is like 4 out of 5 of our starters this year, or 4 out of 5 of our, I guess, pseudo starters, because Al wasn't always a starter, were on or should have been on the Sixers too. That's kind of just a hilarious sort of stat. Drew Holiday, obviously a while ago, was on the Sixers. Al, we all know that worked out. And the Tatum and Brown picks too. They'll never get old that those picks came after the Sixers and the Lakers both years.
Yeah. Well, just to add on to that even a tiny bit more, obviously the Tatum pick, not only could the Sixers have picked him, we picked him with the pick the Sixers traded to us in that swap so they could move up to first. We used the third pick that belonged to the Sixers to pick Tatum. And then to rub even one tiny grain more of salt into the wound, the extra pick we got from that swap became Romeo Langford, who was kind of the centerpiece of the trade that brought Derek White to the Celtics. So let's go all 5.
I saw you tweet about that earlier.
Technically, might be reaching a little, but I mean, the Spurs wanted a young prospect. Romeo Langford did the trick. So thank you.
How did they
thank you again, Philly.
Derek White was a young prospect.
Well.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's
It is.
It's an odd one. But it worked out for them. They got Wemby, so.
To say the least. Yeah, I'm sure the Spurs are fine. And
maybe that was it. They knew if they had Derek White, they wouldn't be able to be bad enough to tank for Wemby.
Yeah,
so.
There's something to be said for that. But yeah, thank you to all the other teams and GMs and organizations that helped make this possible in some small way, and there are many of them. So I don't think there's one glaring like with last time. Everyone loves to credit McHale for giving us Garnett. Nothing quite like that, but just so many moves along the way. So many fleecings, first by Ainge, then by Stevens, and Brad too, another guy who, I mean, talk about guys who have been there for the whole journey, going all the way back to Butler. Brad, back-to-back natties, heartbreaking losses in the national championship at Butler, comes to the Celtics on a team that's essentially tanking. We missed the playoffs for 1 year, gets us to the playoffs, and, Brad obviously coming so close as the coach, then going to the front office, coming so close again. So for him to finally win that one, I was listening to some of Van Gundy on the Low Post, great interview, and talking a lot about Brad and saying everyone thinks Brad is just some, like, innocent choir boy sitting back there. He's like, Brad, behind the scenes, is, like, the most competitive fucking asshole you'll ever meet. And he's like, if I was an NBA GM and I see Brad Stevens calling, I would not answer the phone. Like, just, you're better off. Like,
why is he gonna say that out loud?
Well, he was saying it as a compliment, but he's like, I don't know what he's calling for, but he's like, trust me, you don't want to answer that, like, because you're gonna get fleeced. And he's gonna laugh maniacally while doing it off camera. So good to hear. Nothing surprising, but awesome for Brad. He's the man. Obviously, Joe's the man.
Yeah, I can remember Brad. I can remember when we first signed Brad as the coach. I was golfing. I was just finishing up golfing, and it was so long ago. That was when we would get like text alerts when like a breaking news happened or whatever. And it got a text that was like, Celtics hire Brad Stevens as new head coach, and I was literally like, the Butler guy. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I didn't even know that was like in the in the cards. And I'm like, well, all right, well, this should be interesting, I guess. Young team. He's like a young coach or whatever, and obviously that ends up turning out to be one of the great moments in this story.
Seriously.
Kind of one of the pivotal moments that just started off. So,
and I mean, remember how many seasons of every year there would be a rumor like, oh, Brad Stevens is going to leave for Indiana. That's his dream job. Like, how many years did we hear if he's going to go back to college? Even when Coach K retired, remember they were like, is Stevens going to go to Duke and all this shit? And it's like, no, he's just going to become the fucking best GM in the NBA, actually, for the Celtics. So, and even when that move happened, when Ainge left, and people are like, oh, the Celtics just want to get rid of Stevens, but they're too cheap to just fire him, so they're moving him to
At first, I was against it. I was like, what are they? I was like, what? So he can't be the head coach? We're going to move him to the even higher up job? I was like, what the hell is this? Like, hand up. I misread that one.
No.
It didn't take long for me to realize it was a good move, but at first I was just kind of like, so we don't think he's good enough to keep coaching, or we think he's good enough to build the roster, but apparently he was definitely good enough to build the roster. So,
and again, I still don't think anyone ever
making all the decisions.
I don't think anyone even ever thought he wasn't good enough to keep coaching. I think he was ready for a break. Well, much needed, understandably, and it's just crazy to think as good of a coach he was, he's just probably even a better GM, which is wild. So awesome to have him in place. Obviously, cool to see him celebrating out there. Well deserved. Cool for Joe, again, just someone who has basically unfairly taken so much criticism, and it seems like now, it's funny how much one championship shifts all kind of narratives, and now it's like he's being talked about in a completely different way, and everyone's kind of recognizing all his like psychotic brilliance, and now is like he's getting
God,
he's got to be up there as one of the best coaches in the league. He's 35 years old. It's crazy how young he is, and that's, again, it's just nice to be able to appreciate like all the crazy zany stuff he does. Like when you're winning championships, that's all gravy, and you're like, oh, I love this guy. When when you're battling to make the play in, and your coach is saying like he's just watching heist movies for motivation instead, and you're like, what are we doing? But when it works, you're like, oh my god, he's our crazy genius, and I love him. Good for him.
And he's 148. He's 148 and 55 in his coaching career, so he's got a 73% win percentage. And you're right. When you win, like early in the year when we had one of the episodes where it was you and Coley was filling in, and he was saying he's like, no, I'm saying that I think Joe is the best coach in the league. And I remember at first I was just kind of like, ooh, I kind of like this. This is kind of going. But now it's like looking back, it's like that's not even all that crazy. Like, I wouldn't say that he's necessarily like definitely the best, but putting him in that conversation doesn't make you seem crazy. Yeah, it's not laughable.
Right.
Just again, some of the different things, like the different stories that have come out. I had to listen to the Zach Lowe podcast that he's on, because I guess he tells a bunch of like really like crazy sort of
That's
like
the same one with the
ways that he looks at life in the game. Yeah. So definitely want to check that out. But yeah, I mean, shout
I
out
go
to
on
Joe.
like a
I
10-minute
love him.
tangent about how much he loves everything heist related and all of his strategies of how he would rob a bank and what role he would want to play.
Yeah, I think I saw one quote where he's like, "I'm not condoning this, but it's like, but you have to appreciate like the level of like planning and like perfection and like something that has to go into it." It's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, because like it's like you hear that and you're like, I get how that brain's working. Like that, I don't know if that freaks me out. That I'm sort of like, you know what? That's actually a good way
He
to think
basically
about
said
it, right?
he built a Mount Rushmore of guys who he considers his like coaches of like life, and they're all from different. One is this guy who was like the best chess player in the world. He's like the star of that movie, like Finding Bobby Fischer. He's like a chess prodigy, and then he switched to like martial arts and became like the best martial artist in the world. So that's like one guy, and he's like all of his stuff is just translatable to life. And he was saying last year, him and his family got on a plane because his wife had never met this guy, and they went and spent like a week with him in Costa Rica in the jungle, just building like habits to make them better at all aspects of life. And it's just like it's just so cool that this stuff is paying off. Like everything he said was just awesome, crazy, hilarious. And again, now just you get to appreciate it because when you win, it's like wow,
I loved. He said something. I think he was on Part of My Take too, and he said because he tore his meniscus, and he's like, I might have to tear my meniscus again next year just for like because like that might be like it's like, and it's like he says it, it's just kind of like he might like I don't know, like I can see that.
I'm not ruling it out.
It's like that sounds crazy, but it's like you kind of like laugh, but he's just like looking at you. It's like, all right, dude, like whatever works, I guess.
Right.
I also loved you saw the videos of him going around the North End last night, just like. Just like I mean, obviously he had like a security guard with him, but it's just like just watching him carry that thing around, like you kind of just see him in like shorts and a t-shirt. It's like, dude, no one's fucking with that guy either way. But just the way he was mobbed and just able to kind of go through the street and you know give fans an opportunity. I mean, that it's just so cool. Again, it's like everyone on the team. For all you hear from like morons about like Boston, like racist city, it's like it seems like all the players here are loving being here right now, and not just. And I don't mean just Pritchard, Hauser, and Cornette. I mean all the players. They asked like, oh, do you like being in the North? And he's like, I love the whole city of Boston. It's like his response. It's like it's great stuff that Jaylen said about Boston. You know, like he appreciated this is where he basically became a man in this city, and you know, just all that shit. It just bodes well. I'm very optimistic about the future, but it feels so fucking good to get this first monkey off the back. So
to say the least, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the beauty of it when you take a step back and look, and it's like everyone is so young, from Brad to Joe are extremely young. The Jays are basically just entering their prime. I mean, across the board, it's a thing of beauty. And like you even said, you know, I'm sure the supporting cast will change, and we'll see what the second apron brings. And some of the guys like Drew and Al are getting a little longer in the tooth, but look, like at this point. We've established that these guys are so good. As long as we have the Jays, we're going to be in the mix, I'm pretty sure, for the next like 6-7 years. We've got them. Yeah. We'll be good. And I think this is just the beginning for them. And I'm excited to see how the team, but specifically them, approach next year and play now that they've we did it. They don't have that one thing that dominates every conversation and is that like little but at the end of every single line.
You just
now
know
that's
how to
gone.
win now.
They can just go out and play freely, and now, we're the ones up there being like, come at us, like, good luck. So I'm excited for that. I'm not ready to get into all that yet. I'm still very much enjoying the moment.
No, we'll play a pause in the off season for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it is great. The outlook for the future is just as rosy as it is in the present right now. It's all good in Celtic land. It really is. Mention Jeff Van Gundy for a second. He's already agreed to another job with the Clippers, which, like, whatever. That's fine. Good for him.
Did you see his reason? Like they were asking,
I
think it was on the low podcast. They asked him, like, why didn't you consider there's open things on the Celtics staff? And he basically was like, it would have just been like a little bit unseemly for me to like jump leapfrog some of the other guys who are due for like kind of that promotion and stuff like that. So
and he did
credit
more.
to him. I mean,
he was very humble too, even on the show.
Someone on the Clippers staff.
Well,
either way,
for sure. But they probably deserve it.
Someone's gonna leap.
Those assholes deserve it. But no, it was him very humble, saying like, I play a very small role in this, that, and the other. But, one more cool little thing we've talked about, how much we can kind of rub this in the face of all our enemies, too. Must be something for Van Gundy, obviously the long-time Knicks coach, has been all around this, that, and the other, to finally get what's his first ring ever, and for it to come on this year with the Celtics. It's kind of hilarious. A guy who will always be thought of as like a lifelong Knicks guy, and it's like, but he had to come to Boston to get a ring, and now his first taste of a championship. So cool for him that he came here for 1 year and was a part of it. And again, like that's, good for him that he's found a bigger role, and everything I think was handled correctly. And I don't think that's some like huge loss for the Celtics. I like Van Gundy, but
right. But yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. Yeah, I'm cool with it.
That was kind of cool too. And just up and down the roster.
Cassell's not going anywhere, right? There was like rumors that he was maybe going to go to the Bucks, but it's still up in the air.
Still unclear because obviously he was Doc's guy, but now that they got Darvin Ham, maybe he won't want to go there. I don't know. There was talks about there was talks about Redick wanting to add him. Now that Redick's officially the Lakers guy, I think people might come for him, but we'll see. I mean, again, I would think you're going to be an assistant somewhere. Charles Lee's gone too, so I think he'd be like kind of the main lead assistant here on the team that he just won yet another ring with. I don't know why he would want to leave unless someone basically guarantees him that like you're waiting in the wings. Like that's the one angle, is if he really, really still wants to be a head coach and he maybe looks as like, all right, well, Joe's younger than me and is clearly not going anywhere. So that would be the one thing. But again, I feel like Darvin Ham now has put himself in the position to be Doc's replacement. And like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to put yourself in these other positions, and we don't really know like the money being thrown around for assistant coaches that much. So for now he's safe, but I think there's still going to be some guys who come try to poach him. But again, that's the cost of winning. You win and put together a great organization, people are going to come and try to chip away. We saw it for years with the Patriots, and basically every Belichick assistant got poached away after 1 or 2 years. It's kind of the way it goes. So I obviously would love to keep Sam around, and I'd hate to see him especially go to a rival like the Bucks or the Lakers just to be an assistant there. Whereas it's like Charles Lee getting a head job finally, nothing but happiness, and going to the Hornets, perfect, great, well deserved. Thank you for your service and carry on. But
that Hornets loss seems so hilarious now. I was thinking about that today too.
Yeah,
the Hornet loss. Like there was kind of people. We got some flack for not being so not being angry enough on the show after the Hornets episode, but I think I might have actually been angry, but
well, you lost your mind when we lost to the Lakers, or when they didn't have LeBron.
Oh yeah, the Lakers. I was like, what's the one that I said was the worst?
That was the one that you said was like
loss of the season.
Yeah.
Yes. And I stand by it. With that built us. We went on a huge run after that. Yeah. We went on a huge run after that. They heard what I had to say. I said, this is enough. That's bullshit, and they figured it out. So
clearly the rallying cry.
Credit to me for the accountability there. I don't always like to come at my boys like that, but
for sure. Give a second of kudos, I think, to some of the other guys like Pritchard, who at one point last year asked for a trade, came back, played a huge role on this team. Basically, eventually was out of the playoff rotation, which, that's what happens. But what other guy I think he literally invented a new role of specialist who literally just comes in for long buzzer beaters.
I saw someone say that Pritchard plays special teams.
I'm not a complete NBA historian, but I can't imagine there's been another guy who literally doesn't play. Like, it's one thing to bringing a guy in who just would normally be resting, like, the Warriors, maybe Curry's on the bench, but they bring in Curry because they have, 2 seconds left and they want him to get a buzzer beater. That's one thing. But Pritchard literally doesn't play other than these last second of quarter situations, comes in and hits these heaves to hit 2 half-court shots in the finals when you basically otherwise don't play is absolutely absurd. So credit for him. Like, he played a big part, and that
2 of his 3 shots were those. It's awesome.
If that becomes like a new role in the NBA, because I've never seen anything quite like that. Unreal. Hauser also unreal series for Hauser. He was great, especially in Game 5, but he had a few good games. He found his shot and just held his own, and then some on defense. He's been a huge role player. He's another guy I hope they can work out a long-term reasonable extension with him, and he's someone who, if he can keep playing like this on defense and keep shooting, he'll be a great guy to have out there supplementing the Jays off the bench for many years to come. Credit to him. He became great. Really everyone picking up Tillman in the middle of the year. He, played his role. We needed him at times. He came in and played great for us. Cornette, wasn't a great Cornette series in the finals. Not great for him, but he was absolutely rock solid for us all year off the bench. It was like every question up and down the line was answered. Can't say enough about Drew Holiday. Obviously, what he did coming in there and getting to the point where, he was, I don't think anyone would have gone crazy, lost their minds if he got named finals MVP. He was that good. And just, everything that was advertised and then some from Holiday, and again, Derek White, rock solid as well. Porzingis, credit to him cutting it out. Sounds like he's now going to need surgery, so I respect that he wanted to go out there and play.
He overrode Mazzulla said he overrode the medical team too.
Yeah, so
But again,
Who knows?
whatever. Like I think we said it before. If he's out till Christmas getting healthy, that's fine. We're fine with that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that. And
But again, shout out to him though for doing that, because I do feel like he kind of, and this was my biggest knock on him when the trade first happened, was the health issue, just staying healthy and being out there. That's been his issue pretty much his whole career, minus the season with, and it was this year too. But to kind of show when it really mattered and when push came to shove at the end, to kind of just come and be like, fuck it, like, even though I'm risking like more, of an injury, that's a spot where you can easily be selfish and kind of, make it about yourself and about your own future. But he wanted 100%. It. He's been in the league so long. He's wanted it too. So it's definitely a huge credit to him for, despite, being hurt, still willing to get out there and sort of push himself and to even just put himself to get back from the initial like Solaris or
right.
whatever that like space planet name that people call your calf. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, KP, awesome. I love it. I loved his quote after. He's like, I think maybe they're at Encore or something like that afterwards. I think that's where they went to party the first night. But he just was like, he's like, I don't want to quiet. He's like, we're the fucking champs. It's like, fuck yeah. Like, you can tell this guy's so pumped to be a part of that. Shout out Derek White giving up a fucking tooth.
Yeah.
I honestly am so like, I always thought chipping your tooth was like debilitating. Like that'd be so painful. I'm being told by people who have chipped the tooth that it is extremely painful. That's so shout out to Derek White for still coming in after that. I don't think he's going to obviously just be out for the game from that, but to kind of come in and still be able to play well.
Yeah, it wasn't
and hit some pretty clutch shots, obviously. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy. Second year in a row, we had a guy's head stomp, basically crushed in the playoffs. So he bore that cross well. So shout out to Derek White.
Yeah. Shout out to everyone.
Off the bottom,
doing
just such a likable team.
Getting it done for Gorman's last year feels great too. Happy to send him off with that. Sad that some of our legends couldn't be alive to see it, but felt like we honored everyone appropriately, and just a great season, start to finish. Like honestly, I'm going to enjoy this one for a long, long time, and hopefully this group goes on to win many more. But I think we'll always remember this first one, and it's funny too, where you just we try to convince ourselves otherwise, but you just look back at precedent and NBA history. You can't skip steps. This is how it happens. Like it's like you have to go through those journeys. You have to cross different thresholds. You have to get to certain heights. You have to lose, get pushed back, and keep climbing to reach the mountaintop. Like that's just
everyone
how it
has always had that.
gone.
Everyone's always had that team that have to get that the things they have to go through in the NBA. That's just always, even like people try to compare. They're not like this player. They're not like this player. Everyone had that. I mean, Michael Jordan had to get through the Pistons.
And the Celtics.
LeBron had to get through the Celtics. Yeah, and the Celtics. LeBron had to get through like kind of the Celtics, go down to Miami and do what he had to do. Yeah. There is always just that team that's going to push you, or those, maybe if it's not just that team, just like those experiences that are going to push you and kind of help you. Right. In order to learn to win, sometimes you have to learn to lose. And again, it puts a lot of those other things into perspective. Like, the way we lost. Last year it's still a little frustrating because, you think maybe, we could have won, but it's like, I don't think they come in this season so focused to taking every step seriously without what happened last year, which I think was what made this team so much different, where every single thing was like the process, like like it's not just like, boom, we wake up and we're here. It's like, no, we have to go, on the road to Charlotte and play really hard in this game and things like that. So I know they lost the one in Charlotte, but
it's also crazy to think of like a team that starts the season with that much pressure, where it was like from the second training camp started, it's title or bust. To live with that pressure all year long and not even show the slightest signs of cracking at any point is unreal, and shows that's when people, look at the playoffs and be like, they're not battle tested. It's like, this is one of the most battle tested teams ever with all the shit they've had to deal with.
I love Derek White to that after the game. He's like,
however many years, 2 years. It's like everything's been a battle to the point where even, like you said, their own media is ripping on them and basically saying like, if you don't win a championship, we don't take you seriously. And instead of whatever, they were just like, okay, fine, bet, and went out and dominated until the championship was over and they had won it handily. And it's like, that is not easy to do and should not be understated. And again, it's like we just can't wrap our heads around that this is the way it has to be. And it's funny, you even look around the league right now and there's the same people are looking at other teams and doing it. You saw T-Wolves beat the Nuggets and everyone's like, it's the Timberwolves time. And it's like, It's not. It's just not. Anthony Edwards is 22.
Yeah.
Even Luka is 24. Like this is part of Luka's journey. He's a few years behind
Right, yeah,
where the Jays are. It's
exactly.
like he has to go through these failings, and Edwards has to go through these. People don't want to accept it, and now in the moment, everyone's like, "Oh, maybe Anthony Edwards isn't as good as we thought he was." It's like, no, relax. He is. Like this is
He's just not
the
there.
normal
Yeah.
steps along the way of reaching that point. It's not a coincidence that all of the all-time greats pretty much start winning when they're 26, 27, 28, coming into their prime of their prime. If it was easy and guys would come in and just start winning as rookies second year, like that doesn't happen in the NBA. It never has. It probably never will. It's not a surprise that it didn't. And it's no knock on the Jays. Again, if anything, it's just the fact that they experienced so much success early that got them held to a higher standard that's not realistic and never has been for anyone else along the way. But look around the NBA now, and hopefully teams take this as a bit of a lesson. I don't, nobody's looking at the Orlando Magic being like, well, they lost in the first round. Do they have to split up Banchero and Wagner? Like, no, don't be crazy. Be patient. And I promise you from firsthand, it's worth the wait.
Yeah, I wanted to go. You mentioned, because I have a whole list of stats, and this was a stat sheet that Sean Grandy, who had an unreal call to the final. I know we were all probably watching on TV, but if you can find, I think we tweeted out from the @Chuddy's Corner account. So go find that tweet, because his call, I can still remember his from 08 where he's like, like the mission statement is mission accomplished or whatever, something like that. He had another really good call for this. If you go find it. But this is like you mentioned, like, without wavering in the regular season. I think that's important, because you look at some teams that don't take the regular season seriously. You look at even like some fans who just kind of don't take the regular season seriously. Yep. This is what this team did with all that pressure around them. NBA's best record, won the Eastern Conference by 11 games. That's the largest NBA conference win since 14 games. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the next one down. 14 games. That's the largest NBA conference win since 1976. 11.34 scoring margin is the fifth best in NBA history. 15.22 scoring margin at home, third best, 1.22 points per possession. That's the best offense in NBA history. They scored the second most threes in NBA history. They had the third most home wins in franchise history and the most in the NBA in the last 8 years. They won or tied the season series with every team except for Denver. They had the best home record, 37-4, fewest road losses, 14, and the best record in back-to-backs. They were 12-2 in back-to-backs. That's insane. They clinched the playoff spot. You mentioned it before, 17 days before any other team.
Crazy.
Clinched the best record before 12 teams even clinched the playoff spot. The longest losing streak of the season, 2 games. They had more 30-point leads, 17 30-point leads, and they did 10-point deficits. They had 16 10-point deficits, but 17 30-point leads. They had 17 25-point wins, 10 30-point wins, and 3 50-point wins. 3 50-point wins. That's fucking insane.
Wow.
19 20-point wins and only 1 20-point loss. They won wire to wire in 10 games. And they had opponents shoot the fewest amount of free throws in NBA history against them. Or what? Opponent free throws, fewest in NBA.
Wow.
I don't know what that means. Does that mean that we were getting a good whistle? Is that what that is?
It's not a good whistle.
Either way.
We're defending without fouling.
Oh, perfect. All right. Love that. Second team to win 16, to only lose 3 playoff games. I mentioned that since they moved to the 16 win. This is some playoff stuff. One of 8 teams in NBA history to outscore teams by 10 or more for the regular season and in the playoffs. They had the 7th longest playoff streak with 10. They never trailed in any playoff series. 80 wins in the season and the 79% win percentage. Just fucking domination. Again, shout out to Grandy for putting that all on like an easy to read sheet, because you read that shit and this is like, again, this isn't a matter of the competition not being good. It's just the Celtics were just that dominant. This is just a truly dominant season from wire to wire. And, it sucks that some people aren't able to appreciate it and may still not appreciate it. But for us, it's fucking golden. It's everything we could have hoped for. So, I've never appreciated anything more. So,
and also, again, it's one thing in the moment, but give it 5, 10, however many years, people are going to look back. They're going to see all those numbers you just read. They're going to see a team with probably 4, 5, maybe 6 NBA Hall of Famers, a coach and a GM who might be in the Hall of Fame. They're going to look back and see all that, and they're going to go, yeah, that was one of the best teams of all time. So, again, people might not want to say it now because, we didn't win the way that Nick Wright wanted us to win, or Colin Cowherd, or whatever moron is Chris Broussard, whoever you're talking about. Like, we didn't do it just aesthetically the way they wanted to see it. but that shit doesn't matter.
And then even when we won, we didn't celebrate the way some people wanted us to celebrate. There's all types of bullshit.
But all this stuff, this will be talking points for 5 minutes until an NFL preseason game happens or whatever. And then a few years from now, when people aren't as insane and they're focused on whatever the next thing is, they'll look back and be like, yeah, that was an all-time dominant team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was great. Fun stuff. You got any other final thoughts?
I don't know. Not much. Happy to see Jaden Springer get a ring. I'm sure Philly fans love seeing him popping champagne in the locker room. That one's gotta.
I know. What a sick little move for him. Yeah, you get brought in for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
After tomorrow, we're gonna do the parade tomorrow. Then after that, then I'll start to focus on Banner 19.
Draft prep. Yeah. So, do you think that I mean, I'm sure it won't happen immediately, but do you think that just saying Banner 19 will come to have the same weight as Banner 18? Because I feel like everything's been Banner 18, Banner 18, Banner 18. It's been an obsession. And I'm trying to remember if it's always been that way. Right, it's been a slow build towards this because I feel like there's just always been
I feel like when the Celtics 18. Won in 08, the next season wasn't Banner 18. It wasn't
Banner
all about
18.
Maybe it was.
I can't remember.
It's tough too. 19 is a prime number. That's just not as.
It doesn't sound as. Doesn't have the ring 18, to it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it might. I don't know if it'll be quite as the marketing sort of thing, but I think for fans of the team, I'll definitely be thinking about Banner 19 and stuff. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Where it's this was just so much the pursuit for Banner 18, pursuit for Banner 18. I'm trying to remember if it was the 09 season, if we were gotta get Banner 18 now. It's I feel it kind of comes with the weight, so. But
you'd think.
But I hope there is 20, 21. Yeah. I'm all for as many banners as possible with this team, and I definitely think we're set up for it.
Definitely. We did the waiting part now, so now hopefully we get to bully everyone from this place of dominance. And
before Wemby gets into his prime.
Stamp our thumb out down at the rest of the league for a while, and hopefully all the good up-and-coming teams continue to be in the West would help too. I wouldn't hate that. So it's all good right now. Life is all good.
Yep, it's all good.
One little thing I do want to go back and say, just because I know I don't know if it was last pod or last spaces, but I know we were talking about the Derek White extension. I just want to amend a few of the things I said because the numbers are a little higher.
I've been quoting you on that.
It's still the right idea, but so since all of the incentives in his contract, which were maybe considered unlikely, basically all hit, we're allowed to offer him a much higher number. So the actual, I think, max extension we can offer him is a lot more competitive than what I had initially thought, which I thought it would be around 25 a year. I think it's actually could end up as high as 4 years, 127 million. So actually a little over 30. So that is a much more reasonable number that I think he could consider accepting.
Yeah, because hopefully what you said was that they can only pay him 125% or 150% of what he made this year.
Yeah, I think it's 125%.
So you're saying because the incentives made his number this year so much higher.
He had all these extra incentives for winning this many X amount of playoff games, playing in this many games, maybe making an all defense team, winning the finals, things like that, which he also did. Checked every box. So I think that made his salary for this year.
So
hitting all those incentives higher.
Derek White
and allowing us to offer much
could be
more.
A little bit more.
I think it's 4 years, 127 million was the number I heard, which again, that is a pretty competitive contract. And again, I think you could argue that if he hit the open market, he could make more, but guaranteeing that now, then he won't have it hanging over his head all of next season. He won't, God forbid he gets hurt before next year that, I feel like now you can make a pretty good case for, exactly. That's not, like I said, if he was accepting considerably less than guys like Porzingis and Holiday who had just signed, but that's got to be pretty close to what the Holiday number is too. And I think, having them on the same deal is fair. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be I need to get more than him or whatever.
And it's I don't know. I mean, Holiday's a little bit older, but he's done, he's accomplished. I feel like he's, Derek White's on the Holiday trajectory. Holiday is Holiday already.
Yeah. Well, right.
Holiday
you're paying their next contract.
Holiday also first player in NBA history to win a championship in the first year with 2 different teams. So assassin. He's you trade for Holiday, you're automatically getting yourself in a good spot.
But nobody else got any ideas.
No, he's not for sale. No, he's not available. Right. Also, this is just a real quick aside because you mentioned the draft prep thing. And typically, I think that Bill Simmons is kind of a dumbass, but at first, I thought this was a dumbass thing that he said, but the more I thought about it, I'm kind of I sort of like the diabolicalness of it. He's basically saying the Celtics at 30 should just draft Bronny because he's more like he's at 30th. He's probably the most valuable player you can get, not necessarily for playing wise, but because what other teams might be willing to give up to get him, just in hopes that maybe I saw like Rich Paul had a thing too. He came out and he's like, LeBron's cooled on the idea of playing with Bronny, and then he had like some funny quote, and it's like, he's like, and also he's not taking the minimum in for Phoenix,
which like that
no
shit
that clear. Yeah,
like,
I don't.
No,
that's
no
what I was
shit.
like. I was like, who the fuck said that? I didn't even hear that. But so I don't know if that was maybe like a way to kind of calm a little bit of that, but I think that was an interesting kind of take by Simmons because we don't really need anything at the 30th. I mean, it's going to be hard for anyone to take it at the 30th to do much for us, or even in name do much for us. But
maybe. I don't know. But I don't like going in with that mindset before the draft even starts that there's no like there's good role players drafted around 30 all the time. And at this point, if we can get a good role player on a rookie contract, it would be fucking amazing. So I don't want to just waste the pick.
Or we trade Bronny for something better.
If that's a realistic possibility, absolutely. It would just be funny for like the pettiness of it all to make LeBron upset, to do whatever you got to do. Like, I mean, I don't think that would
just get a few pictures of the Celtics here.
Try to angle his way to the Celtics. It'd be hilarious if he did.
No, I don't think that's what Bill Simmons. I don't think Bill Simmons was saying to get LeBron to the Celtics. I think he was saying
hostage. Yeah.
No, he was saying to trade. Like Philly might be willing to pay a little bit more for Bronny than they would for anyone else we could take at 30.
Thinking that they'll be able to get
that thinks they have a chance to get. Yeah, I don't think the idea was to lower LeBron here.
Right.
I think that'd be awful for our camaraderie.
Yeah, no. But it would just be funny and would be one more nail in the coffin to all our haters if that did happen. Not even saying I want it to happen. I don't, but it would be pretty hilarious to see. But, I mean, I think maybe we have to be even a little more forward-thinking, and maybe we use the 56th pick on Deuce Tatum. I think we're thinking about the wrong NBA Sun we need to secure. Yes.
Yeah.
If that can guarantee a lifetime contract for Tatum by drafting his son, I think we go ahead and do that. That's something I'd be willing to do, certainly. But, no, I mean, the way this Celtics organization, it'll be interesting to see, because as Brad Stevens made a pick since he became GM. I think he's traded the first round pick every single year, right?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just going back, I'm almost positive he's traded our first round pick every single year. As of now, we still have the pick. It's potential to be traded. We'll see, but I'll be very
interested. Draft Bronny and trade him.
There you go. It's an option. It's definitely an option at this point. So, yeah, one more thing to watch. It's crazy. The draft it's next week, right? I think it's less than a week away, isn't it? Next Wednesday night, I think, is the draft already.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about the draft yet.
It's
next Wednesday, you said?
It's very soon.
Interesting.
So, yeah, time to you got a lot of scouting to do, it sounds like, between now and next week. You got a lot of tape to grind.
Because literally all I have, a lot of tape to grind. I know Bronny's there somewhere, but yeah, I gotta catch up. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, folks. Celtics banner 18 is here. It's ours. We did it. Yeah. Don't let anyone cheapen this. Don't let anyone take anything from you. Don't let anyone talk any shit. We did it. Every single thing that was needed to be done was done.
Every box was
checked. Everyone can you say now? Again, they're finding things to say, but I'm saying to people, don't pay any attention to it. I'm going to be like the army man, the army man meme. While everyone else, all the chuddy heads can just enjoy. I'll be the army man meme, standing there taking all the But you know what I'm talking about? The army man standing taking all the shots while everyone's
absolutely.
I guarantee I'll look now. I have 15 texts.
No.
Shitheads.
Well, that's pathetic.
But I'll stand. Everyone else enjoy it. I got you.
Drink their tears. Drink their tears happily. Mix it with the champagne. Yes, absolutely. And then speaking of the parade, I assume we'll be ripping the Chuddy's account. I'm sure there's going to be a million Chudlings all across Boston tomorrow. If you want to meet up, cheers a beer, splash some champagne, say hi, whatever. We'll be out and about, so maybe can we pass along our pass on Twitter DMs. Or whatever. We'll tweet out some pics, some spots, whatever. But happy
I think our plans to try to get towards the the convention center towards the end if there's speeches. I'm assuming there's speeches. So if anyone's down in that area, reach out to us.
Yeah.
Chuddy's Corner.
Absolutely. We'll be there. We'll be there. And
always love to meet the loyal Chuddy heads.
Exactly. We're not shy about that.
Oh, never mind. I thought we had breaking news. Not breaking news. Something we already talked about. All right. Everyone enjoy yourselves. Everyone go to the parade. Stay hydrated. Enjoy yourselves. Wear sunscreen. And if anyone meets someone that needs sunscreen, I'll definitely have some sunscreen. So another good thing. No, if you needed one more reason to meet up with us, I will.
If you were torn on going or reaching out to us,
if your concern was the lack of sunscreen, if you meet up with the Chuddies, we'll take care of you. All right, everyone. Chuddy, take care. I'll see you tomorrow.
Peace out, Chuddy heads.